Good evening. It's about a little bit after 6:30. I've been on since 6 o'clock, waiting for someone to jump on, and no one is here. So I'm going to presume that I'm going to be preaching to nobody, at least live. Nonetheless, I'm going to use a few minutes and posting a video that will result uh, from where I've just begun, just to begin to talk about the uh, applications paper assignment. This is not exhaustive. This is not exhaustive. This is not exhaustive. I don't want to overload you with all of what we may want to consider insofar as addressing the issues of the midterm, or rather of the applications paper. So I'm just going to introduce some premises today, keep dropping nuggets in the ground, acorns in the ground, whatever metaphor may work for you, so you can begin to think about this. In truth, from the beginning of the course up through now, literally now, you have been preparing yourselves to do this particular assignment. And as I said, I think last week, or rather in the video I just posted yesterday for this week's coursework, I want to make the point that several of you, I can think of at least three of you, have already begun to do this very explicitly, actually, in the points that you've made. And in as much as the midterms that you have offered me to evaluate, and I've evaluated all of them at this point, uh, I can see all the nuggets and all the acorns and all the seeds I can think of that we will now nurture to develop into a full-fledged plan. I, I, I don't see this as a difficult assignment. But I do see it as an assignment that challenges you to consider the whole elephant, the whole with a W. All of what we've addressed by way of the text, by way of the various, I don't know how many videos I've done for you in one form or another. And the fancy word is, to come back to Bloom's taxonomy, is to have synthesized these premises. So all I'm going to do tonight, and briefly, I will post this particular uh, document that I will share with you in a moment, in documents, so you can look at it to get yourself going, to wet your whistle, stick your toe in the water. By all means, don't rush through this piece. And actually, it's for me as well as you, in order for me to understand where you're coming from. And with that, I'm just going to post the document. Rather, I'm going to share the document so that you can see it. And hopefully you understand where I'm taking you on this. Now, first thing I wanted to mention is, as I said a moment ago, is that you are mirroring the midterm. In the midterm, you were criticizing, evaluating the plans or non-plans of Scott Rocks. And in the conversations that you offered and the thinking that you considered, you've already begun to show some things that appeal to you and you think that work for your own situation. So use the midterm as a baseline. I wouldn't say it's the only baseline you should be using, but certainly use that as something for you to work from to get your motor running. As far as the due date is concerned, I don't know why I put that there. I think I haven't even looked that closely at the syllabus, but I think the last day is the 10th, which is about 3 weeks from now. Let's say the 17th, about three weeks from now. So I'll probably make a due date for the 12th. And as some of you already know, I have no problem extending the dates. I just don't like the dates to go that long past the end of a semester, because as much as I'm pretty flexible, as you know, also inflexible with myself for getting grades in a timely way. So bottom line is, I really want the paper when it's due, so that I can evaluate it, combine its score with the scores of the discussion questions. That is to say, whether you responded to every discussion question and whether you responded to other people's points of view, where I can score all of that and then bring that together with the midterm number, and we add those all together and it adds it to a grade. In truth, this is Pinko Liberal Bernardo talking for a moment. I have no patience for grades for graduate classes. I understand why people want grades, and it's interesting to me that so many of you keep asking me for what grades you have. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at myself. I'm not used to that, in truth. And I appreciate the fact that you want to be sure that you're getting the grade that you want to have. That's a preferable future that you're working towards. But I don't have any patience for trying to shave a point here or add a point there for those things. It just doesn't make any sense to me. What I look at is the sum, the SUM, to see whether everyone has done all of it, everything we asked, and has done it well. That's what matters to me. So there is a due date. It's around November 10th for the moment. Now I highlighted, if you can see it, you can see it on the document when you open it up in Blackboard, in documents. You'll see that what I need to know is the context. This is important to me. And I would recommend that you really work on this when you finish watching this video. And very soon, not on November 9th, because you won't be able to get this assignment done in one day. That I promise you. But as soon as possible, consider the context. Now, I talked a little bit about this in yesterday's video, Sunday's video. I just want to kind of reiterate it. And essentially what I'm saying is, you've got to pick some kind of context to work from. Whether you pick an organization that may have been discussed in the textbook, that's okay with me. Just point out which one you're using. I don't particularly like that one because those things are out of cans. But if you need to work from that kind of structure, I can respect that. I would prefer that you try to create your own context if necessary, by way of just sort of sitting down and saying, what would the ideal issues be that I would want to address, and then create your own corporation, create your own group organization, create your own charity, or whatever you're familiar with, and work from there. Or if you need to or you want to, certainly without a doubt, and this would work for a lot of you, but not for all of you, choose a context that you've been dropped into. The present business that you're working for, or one that you were in and no longer a part of, and use that as the context. Now, in terms of context, I need you to tell me what I need to know. What do I need to know? So I can see that you've linked it to that, where is it? How many employees? I'm not going to put all these things down. Where is it? Employee. What kind of employees are they? Oh, by the way, what's the vision and culture of that culture? I'm sorry, of that organization. Tell me about the organization. Tell me about your own role. Now that you're HR, make that up if you need to. Give me a broad. Are you ready for the word I'm talking about? A story. Tell me a story about your context. Give me a scenario. Use a Scott Rock's premise if you want to work from that, but give me some kind of story. In fact, it's not a requirement to give to me by next Monday, anything like that, but by all means, send me a draft of what you're talking about, and I will give you feedback about whether I think you've caught all the elements in the net. But that's important. That's the first thing of importance, and that will be the context. And then what that list is there in yellow is probably not all the things that we need to know, but it's the beginning of all the things that you would want me to know in order for me to understand what you're working from. Now, the next piece is something that you have all seen in one place or another. This is not any Nobel Prize for business management template by any means. This is a standard action plan design template. That's all it is. It's what I call inorganic, as opposed to its opposite of organic, because it's written on a piece of paper, or a cyber paper, if you want to call a computer screen, document that. And it's not exhaustive necessarily. What I've done here is use this as a left to right, linear, from goals over to reasoning sources, to get you off the ground. It's a graphic. It's all, or a graphic organizer. And it's just meant to get your motor running. It is not exhaustive. It is not exhaustive. It is not exhaustive. Next week, I'll flesh some other premises out. And the following week, I'll give you some more things to think about, just as you begin to add to what this is all about. Now, working left to right, what are the goals of this company? Or I'm going to go with the word company as an organization. What are the goals of this organization as you perceive them? If there aren't any, then say they're vague, or they don't exist, or or you don't know what they are. Don't say that. I think you should, if you don't know what they are, say they don't exist, but come up with something to give me some kind of place to get my teeth into the leg of what you're talking about. Now, the goals, uh, you can call them objectives if you want. So I did just sit and fit it into the size of the template I have here. You could call them goals or objectives. Objectives are cleaner, as we've spoken about several times. And working left to right from goals, we're going to go to strategies. Now, what strategies are you going to use to get them off the ground, to meet the HR goals that you have, insofar as we understand this particular organization? If it's weak on talking to each other and they don't dialogue with each other and don't problem solve together, and so the products they create or the clients whom they serve are not satisfied or don't work well, then clearly that's what the strategies are that you need to use in alignment with your goals / objectives to turn that around, improve on it, and so forth. So you should have strategies. Notice I have the plural here. I'm highlighting the suffix on that. You should have strategies, not one strategy per objective. That's silly if you think about it. You should have multiple strategies per objective that you have. Now, if someone's going to say to me, how many objectives should I have? For the sake of keeping your sanity, I would say 2 or 3 tops, knowing fully well that most organizations probably have many more goals that you would suggest in a real world situation. But you should have 2 or 3 strategies per objective as well. How are you going to bring it off? From a perspective of a couple of different ways to look at it. Before I go down the strategy column, going across, we talked about this 100 times, or criteria. And again, you notice I have a suffix. This is not a suffix, I guess, but in this case, I've highlighted the letter A because criteria is a plural word for criterion. And as I said several times when we talked about evaluating how a needs assessment training process would work, it's death by 1,000 cuts if you don't make sure that you have multiple ways to assess an objective. If you use one single way, we made a profit kind of objective, you're going to miss the mark on that from many counts. Because that shouldn't even be a criterion in my mind as such. So what are the criteria you're going to use? You need to offer some multiple measures. So profit could be one. Effective training, effective communication with clients, effective communication with each other, whichever things you're looking at as priorities, are the other models I would offer for the moment. Who should do this? Now, this is a little tricky because we don't know who these people are. So what you're going to do is name titles. And I wouldn't bog down in this particular column, obviously, but don't give all the goals, all the strategies, to yourself to do. Your mind will crack open, first of all, and that's not the way they should work. You should be able to figure out who can take care of the technological piece of running a training system, who can take care of evaluating the system and so forth. Who, whether it be the accounting manager or the foreman or the president of the organization and so forth. Who? Identify them. I would not spend a lot of time on that, because I really don't spend a lot of time reviewing it in truth. But I want you to show me that you thought about that as such. When is a timetable? And again, I will look at this a little more closely than I'll be looking at the column before it. But I have to be honest with you, I am notoriously bad, even when I do consulting with organizations, about creating timetables, because I always front load them. I put everything that's got to be done in the first 2 minutes, and it doesn't work that way. You need to be flexible about thinking about this. So just basically say spring 23, summer 23, fall 24, whatever it is, like how you think things should happen, which means obviously you've got to put your objectives in some kind of sequence. Continuing to move across, what resources do you need? Now, everybody always says the obvious one, I need money. All right, so I'll just put that down as one example of resources. You need expertise. Who are the experts going to be? Outside, inside, both? Videos, online sources? What are and who are the resources? How much money do you, or how many, what do you need to do to get that to come together? Time is an issue. Sometimes it's the locale. Several of you criticized the Scott Rock's decision to use some sort of off-site place to do that, and others of you said that was a good idea. So, well, what kind of resources do you need to make these things happen? This is the important one, I think. What obstacles do you see? What futures do you see that are probables that you think could happen that you need to prepare for? I was talking to a friend of mine the other day whose son is a major corporate executive in an organization, a profit-making organization, housed on Long Island. But I think it's housed on Long Island. It's a New York State organization. They had 1,000 people. They had 1,000 people with Hollywood stars to present keynotes and whatnot. All these people, experts coming in to address 1,000 people, and they were going to use Zoom, and no one realized that the Zoom system they had bought into only housed 100, gave you access to 100 people. So the Zoom crashed, and there's a lot of people with egg on their face in this training session, and that's about what are the probables that you foresee. What I hate to be negative. What could go wrong? What could go right is fine too, and then we wouldn't call it an obstacle. But and how would you maximize those? But let's be ready for the things that need to be ready for. There's a saying, I don't have it exactly verbatim in my mind, that no battle plan ever makes it through the battlefield. Things go wrong, and things you have to go left instead of right. You got to shoot the machine gun that way, and if you haven't got the flexibility to do that, you're in big trouble. But to the extent that you can, what obstacles do you foresee? And what I'm interested in hearing too is the source of your reasoning. How did you come to think about these ideas? Where did the ideas come from? What were you thinking when you were thinking? Now, I'm sure that right now some of you are breaking out into rashes. And I don't want you to break out into rashes. This is just a graphic organizer. Fill it in as best you can for the moment. It's meant to get you a motor running. Now, here's a major obstacle, I think, to an inorganic planning template like this. Just watch my cursor here for a minute. Look at these little boxes. Can you possibly write everything you need to write here in these boxes? It's not possible at all. So all you're going to do is put in ideas in here. And do you have to fill in every silly box? No. Most of them, yes, but not all of them. As long as you're getting your arms around that comprehensive expectation that the plan, that the inorganic plan represents to you in terms of creating the paper. Now, I'm not sure. I hope I'm not misleading you in this, because I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to each of you. My recommendation, I'm not sure I like my idea. I might change this idea along the way. And I've used this. I've had the last time I assigned this to a class, I just had them talk to this as a whole. And everybody covered as many of the boxes as they thought were important. But and the other piece of it was kind of a shotgun blast where the pellets went everywhere, and it wasn't terribly focused. So I'd like to have it more focused. Now, one way to do that would be to, as an example, organize the first section of your narrative. After you've worked up this graphic. And again, put them in the right order, and just do a narration of all the strategies you intend to use, why you've chosen them, and so forth, what they're meant to be all about, the purpose of them. And then go to how you would measure them, and then go to how you would decide who did it, and then in a different section. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to go across. So if you had a needs assessment system and you want to walk it across these things, that would be probably more informative to you in terms of your thinking. So play with this, and I will come back to this premise next week because I want to enable you, and this was the first strategy I'm using with you. I want to enable you to help think this through. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and I want you to sort of create your own system to bring all these things together. So to go back to strategies, for example, we're talking about objectives, we're talking about needs assessment, strategies. We're talking about the strategies you would use to create and align your goals, the strategies you would use, and I keep saying it in plurals. Consider what kind of skills and content and dispositions you're going to use, and who your learners are. What training needs you may have, what strategies of instruction you would use, and ultimately how you're going to evaluate this. That you cannot leave out. Now, if I were you, we're watching this tonight or sometime soon during the week. Excuse me. You might be vibrating a little bit. Not to worry. The first thing you should worry about is getting this context together. Let the template sit there for a day or two. But then you should try to begin to play with the template and see which columns are working for you and which rows are working for you. I have found that I've done thousands of these with different clients over my career. Some people are really good at some parts, and some people are not, because they don't like the way that the template restricts them. And I respect that. So if you want to go organic and try to talk about it in a more loose, less defined way, that's okay, as long as I can recognize that these elements are being addressed. So that's it for now. I'm going to post this document into the Blackboard in the content piece of the Blackboard. And I'm going to post this video for you to use. And I want to remind you there's a discussion question up. I did notice that a lot of you answered the last week's one. And they'll obviously get to the next one next. Enough said. Okay, so I will see you when I see you. And please email me, text me, you hear me say that repeatedly. Feel free to contact me to get any clarifications done for you. But this is just to get you going. This is not a complete document.